Welcome to the Jerusalem Post podcast. It's a crazy week, so we're bringing you a little bit of a mishmash for the opening of the podcast. I'm Eve Young. I'll be joining you with Editor-in-Chief Zvika Klein in just a moment to discuss our conference in New York coming up next week. But first, Editor-in-Chief of the Jerusalem Report, Tamar Uriel-Beeri, and legal correspondent Sarah Ben-Nun will discuss what happened this week in terms of the news, in terms of what we can tell you as of when they did discussion. Things have probably changed by then.
Hi, SBN. Welcome back.
Hi, Tamar. Thank you.
I feel like it's been an age. It's been a time.
It has been many ages and
Many a moon.
many times in the span of about 48 hours. That's how I felt. I felt like...
What are you on about? I haven't seen you in a while.
Oh.
You were talking about the news?
I was talking about the news.
You jumped straight into it.
It's been a while. It's been busy.
It's been busy. Yeah, so you've been keeping up with legal, which has not been an easy feat at this time in Israel.
It almost feels like it's the side chick to the real story, which is everything that happened this week.
This week was
like the Netanyahu's criminal trials are still going on. They're still scheduled. They're still happening. And to me, what's always so astonishing is entering that room and seeing him. And this is the man, and he's doing this, and then he's going out of that room and meeting Mr. Wyckoff and do you know what I mean? Like there's something so still after all this time incomprehensible about the situation.
Right. There's the constant argument, right, of like, how can you have a prime minister under trial? And then the right wing, who more supports Netanyahu, says this means that right now we need to set the trial aside and let him be prime minister. And the center and the left say, so he needs to step down so he can actually go through the criminal proceedings that he is.
Yeah, meaning I think that for the premise of that, you don't need to be right or left. You don't need to be anywhere to understand that you can't be in two places at once, and you can't actually fully, no matter how talented you are, you can't actually fully split your time, especially in the state that Israel is in right now of this war.
The interesting thing is the kind of like vying for center stage between Netanyahu trial and the war and the diplomacy stuff and the hostage releases and the actual stuff that's happening in the news that isn't surrounding the prime minister's criminal trials.
It really is just at the end of the day, usually I walk out of court and I just kind of feel a little heartbroken. I'm like, I wish this wasn't the case. I wish I wasn't walking out of the criminal trial of my own prime minister, who I would want to fully trust to lead us to victory, to safety, to quiet.
Sure. Yeah. So let's talk about the news of today. We're recording on Tuesday, and yesterday we saw the return of Edan Alexander, which was a really, really, really beautiful, emotional, kind of scary moment. Yeah. Scary because in order to reach the IDF and his mother and his family, he needed to go through being transported by Hamas and then with the Red Cross in the Gaza Strip. And the process, especially after with the last round of hostage releases, we saw a lot of violence surrounding the transferring within the Gaza Strip. There's like a lot of fear that somebody's literally just going to pull out a gun and kill them right before
as I was kind of watching all the different newscasts of it, a lot of them were saying, like, don't forget, this has stages, and until he's actually in the hands of the IDF, we can't really guarantee that everything is okay. And so that, like, from when it started, there was a period of like up to an hour, as if I recall correctly, where they were like, we don't know. We just don't know yet, and we are just waiting for that green light to say he is in Israel's hands. Yeah. He's okay. He's healthy. He's like, he's all right. He's with us. I will say that for me, and kind of what I picked up on was such relief and happiness.
Yeah.
And, it's like, this kid didn't deserve it, and the family didn't deserve it, and it's so wonderful that they're reunited.
I think from what we know about him, just in character, he's this like selfless, giving, kind person, because we know that he wasn't supposed to be on base on October 7th. He was supposed to be at home with his mom, who had come to visit because he's a lone soldier. Have to come to visit, by the way, from Tenafly. I grew up next door to Tenafly.
Wow.
And so, they did a screening of Channel 12 News in Israel watching his return. the screening was organized by the Jewish Community Center there, the Jewish Community Center where I went to kindergarten and where I went to summer camp for 4 years. And then it was held by Cafe Angelique, an Israel-owned cafe and business that has been hosting multiple, by the way, pro-Israel events in this kind of courtyard.
It's a really strong Israeli community there.
Tenafly is like a strong, mostly like secular Jewish community. And so a lot of it is like Israelis who moved, a lot of high-tech execs and such live there. Unlike like the Comparative in New Jersey that everybody knows. I always say that everybody knows a Jew from Teaneck, very close by, but much more religious.
Absolutely.
Much more religious.
Yeah, but I do want to say, I think the story of Tenafly is a bit of a microcosm of how the Jewish communities across, at least the United States and definitely across the diaspora, have taken the hostages, the issue of the hostages as a whole, sometimes even one or two figures in particular. I've seen this when I've gone back. I'm from New York, and I've gone back to New York, and they take it so much to heart. And I think, just a moment of pause for the bond there that is so strong, and the sense of camaraderie and just an outpouring of love from these communities outward, and they really feel it. And they're fighting their own fight, and they're fighting a different fight than what we're fighting here, but we're really with each other. And
so actually on yesterday when we saw Edan's return home, during that entire time period, I was kind of in contact with the people who were at the stream in Tenafly, because I know through mutuals, through my sister, who's the same age group as Edan, I know people who are friends with him who were there watching the live stream, and they were talking about this, like how initially, interestingly, in the audience, they were there from 5 a.m, right? Remember that this started like at like 11 a.m.
like
here.
12 p.m. Israel time,
and he only actually came out at like, I think 7 p.m, something like that. 7:30.
Like 6, 7.
Yeah. And so they were there from very, very early in the morning. And they told me that the initial feeling there was they weren't even daring to hope.
Wow.
Which is like so heartbreaking and sad.
It's
think
such
that
a precarious silver lining, that the hope that, and it's kind of also, as I say it, I think it's heartbreaking that you even know what I mean, because we've been through this time and again, and we know those days, the glued to the,
listen,
glued to your TV, watching, waiting.
We have seen terrorists say we are returning hostages and proceed to return corpses.
Yeah.
That is a constant prevailing fear in these situations. But I do want to turn to how this kind of impacts the broader diplomatic story that Israel is kind of experiencing.
One thing I actually want to mention just before we exit the more domestic side is the rest of the hostage families, which are that's kind of the other side of this coin. And a lot of them have yesterday come out and said, we are so happy for the Alexander family. We are terrified for our kids and our family members who are there, who don't have the kind of accidental privilege of having
President Donald Trump
dual citizenship, and they're Israeli citizens. Like, where is that contrast, at least, and we'll talk about this now on the diplomatic sphere, but just on the domestic sphere, yesterday it was so felt, that pain and that kind of sense of betrayal that has been prevalent throughout this whole time. But yesterday, families really felt it of like, where are my leaders pushing and doing everything they can? And they say they are, but in the test of reality, my people are still there.
Right. We have to remember that for Israel to make a deal for the rest of the hostages, there is going to be a give and take. While here there was no price other than it was just a choice based on goodwill. But we do need to look at the fact that President Donald Trump is currently in Saudi Arabia. He's currently in Riyadh.
Yes.
And this is the day after an Israeli hostage was returned by this organization. And while he's in Saudi Arabia, he's not only meeting with the Crown Prince, MBS, he's also meeting with leaders from Syria, from Lebanon, and notably the Palestinian Authority head. He's meeting with Mahmoud Abbas. And that is contextually vital for several reasons.
Absolutely, yeah. Let's talk about it.
Number one, the timing is not incidental. He is currently on a Middle East trip, and he is meeting with these specific leaders of one country that until now was in pretty heavy conflict with Israel and is now in kind of this gray zone, one country that might be entering a deal with Israel, we don't know, one country that is currently at war with Israel along its northern front, and the president of a authority that is actively at war with Israel since its inception. These are not incidental. This is vital for our contextualization of where the war stands right now. The fact that Trump is meeting with them, he's saying enough.
I think also what he's saying is these are all as legitimate actors as Israel.
Right.
And kind of putting, first of all, the Palestinian Authority, which is not very different from the U.S.'s stance all along, but it really just kind of highlights it of this is the recognized leadership.
Right.
And we are having discussions with them as we would with any head of state.
Right.
And I don't know to say with authority how Jerusalem feels about that, but I can imagine it's not very enthusiastic.
I mean, right now we're seeing Netanyahu speak very, very highly about the IDF's renewed campaign that's currently in the process of being launched.
Every message that he has put out over the last 24 to 48 hours, including the congratulations to Edan Alexander for getting out of captivity, was the operation, the impending operation, the IDF's readiness was present there in every single message. If you read it closely,
readiness
it's all
on the
there
one
every
hand,
single
but
time.
But the entire wording of it, the entire presentation of it was very threatening and ominous. He said something along the lines of what the IDF is about to do. You've never seen something like this before. It's very ominous. It's very threatening.
Aggressive language a little.
It's very intense. It's very aggressive. And this is coming at a time in which Trump is, in actuality, in these diplomatic meetings that he's having, he's saying, we need to end this. This needs to stop. And the thing to remember is, why was Trump elected president? He is a businessman. He handles politics like he handles his businesses. There needs to be
quickly
and efficiently, and with an end goal in mind that involves creating some level of benefit for the U.S.
Yeah,
The tariffs, we can argue about whether or not those are the effective way for the U.S. to benefit. But when it comes to diplomacy, he is saying in these actions, an end to the war is in our best interests. And that means a diplomatic one, because that's going to be the way to do it.
I think also what he's saying is this needs to happen fast, and this needs to happen now, and this has dragged on for too long. And your interests are not necessarily mine. That, to me at least, that's the undertone. And we can argue till tomorrow, and I don't want to delve into the reasons people think that the war is not ending.
Right.
But it's not. The war here is not, from Netanyahu's perspective, it is not coming to an end anytime soon.
He is not signaling in any way that he's going to fold to what seem to be the silent demands of the United States and other allies and partners that we have.
Or to Hamas's demands, which I'm sure, and they have changed again and again.
Hamas's first statement after Edan Alexander was released said basically, here you go, you're welcome, we're ready, let's go talk. They're saying negotiations now, yesterday.
Well, I think that, and I'm pretty sure that the Prime Minister said this, if not in these words, part of that willingness to come to the negotiating table now is due to our military pressure. So he's really coupling those two things together and really granting legitimacy to the military actions, which we know within public discourse in Israel are debated. So
heavily
debated.
Yes.
So that he's coming and saying, you wouldn't have reached, I'm putting words in his mouth, but the way I read it is we wouldn't have gotten to this point if we didn't up the military pressure as we did until now. And on the opposite side of this is obviously the hostages first.
Who feel completely neglected in this entire
The families
process.
are desperate. And we've discussed this extensively on the podcast before. And also just the toll that this is taking on everything, on people's, first of all, psychological well-being, on the economy, on everything. You can't be in a war forever. You can't do it. And wars are a lot easier to start than to end, but you also can't stay in them.
Right.
You can't stay in them forever. And Trump is kind of coming and saying, my deadline, thank you.
Yeah, I think something else notable about his trip, which the coalition has done its best to put out fires of this kind of argumentation, but something notable about his trip is that he is not visiting Israel, at least as of now. As of
Right.
right now,
Well,
that is not in the plan.
His Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff.
Witkoff has been here several
here right now,
times.
actually. Yes. But yeah, I agree.
And he
I think
hopped
that's
over.
something.
He hopped over. It was a last-minute trip with the release of Edan Alexander,
Yeah.
with the announcement of the release, rather. But Trump himself has yet to be in Israel. And that also is quite a remarkable statement because he's, again, meeting with Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, Syria, and the Palestinian Authority, but he's not currently, at least, meeting with Israel. We don't know. Israel might perhaps attend one of these meetings that he's having on this kind of Middle East tour. But as of yet, that has yet to be announced. And for now, what we're seeing is Israel very much notably sidelined because until now, what has Trump's line been? We are always going to be Israel's number one, like, fans, supporters, partners, friends. And this
The American line, and in general, America hasn't strayed from that position all that much over the years,
so
right?
this action is being read by a lot of analysts and experts as a threat from Trump to Netanyahu saying, get this stuff wrapped up and everything will go back to normal. But right now, you're no longer the priority in this conversation. Our income, our investments are what's important. And that's why he's meeting with companies.
Right, and
See, that's the Freudian slip right there, with countries that the U.S. will benefit from. Something also notable in this conversation is the current talks between the U.S. and Iran, in which there's talks about a nuclear deal, a renewed nuclear deal, or rather a reformed nuclear deal. That would be
2.0 they've been calling it. Listen, I think it fully ties in with what Trump has been saying since his election round started. American interests first. Israel is an American interest. Israel is also a good friend. Like, there's also all of the sentimentals.
Right.
But at the end of the day, when it comes to diplomacy, we need to remember that there is an interest here. And
also,
American interests are not always 100% aligned with ours. And that's okay also.
Yeah. Also, I'll point out a little side info. Elon Musk is traveling with Trump right now. Elon Musk is in Saudi Arabia.
I kind of forgot about him for a second.
That's nice.
It was.
It was a little quiet in there for a little bit.
A little quiet. I mean, it was filled with other things. But
so Elon Musk's role in the U.S. government is right now confusing because he seems to have one in the first place.
But could you tell me what it is? No, you could not.
I'd say buddy for now.
Buddy.
Elon Musk, buddy. United States of America.
How is Elon affecting Iran talks?
That's interesting, right? That's going to be really the interesting thing. And I'm curious how behind closed doors he impacts it as well. But I really don't know.
Yeah.
It's all speculation.
Iran seems to be willing to talk, more willing to talk than it was. But I think I'd have to imagine that for Israel to see a repeat of the 2015 nuclear deal would be a disaster.
And also unlikely. Trump's not interested in a redo of the 2015 deal.
Right.
Yeah. So we'll have to see. With that, I will let our interviewee this week take it over.
Zvika, thank you so much for joining me to talk about the very exciting 2025 New York conference.
Yes. So, I mean, the news cycle is just going crazy.
It has.
And, there's certain speakers where I'm like, let's just speak the day before or the day of about the topics because it's just changing all the time.
Special envoy Steve Witkoff,
exactly,
Adam Bowler, they were in Hostage Square yesterday. We're speaking today,
they're in
on Wednesday.
Doha now.
In Doha, they were in Tel Aviv.
Right.
Tuesday, Doha Wednesday. They'll be at the conference Monday.
Next, Monday, yeah.
But yeah, I can imagine that you're not wanting to nail down topics yet because. Oh my goodness.
Everything's changing. So today we're recording on a Wednesday and, there are talks about Trump saying that Syria is potentially going to acknowledge Israel, whatever that means, when Syria stabilizes, calling Syria to join the Abraham Accords after he, took off their sanctions and stuff like that. So there's that element. There's the hostage deal hopefully happening, and again,
there was a hostage. Yeah, there was a hostage deal that happened in 24 hours. Like it really feels like anything could happen.
And then Trump, thanked both his team and Netanyahu, and then today he's like, Netanyahu, whatever, but my team actually really made it happen, and if it wasn't for them and for me, it wouldn't happen.
So I'm excited. We're going to be hearing from his team at the conference. That's incredible.
Yeah, and so it's a crazy time to be in, and hoping
Yeah.
there'll be good news anytime
Oh my
very
goodness.
soon, very soon. Yeah, so there's so many things happening. You mentioned Steve Witkoff and Adam Bowler. Some of our team is obviously going to be there in New York. And so there's the more serious stuff, the lighter, fluffy type of topics.
Nuseria Scene, Nas Daily is going
Nas
to be
Daily, yeah, it's very exciting.
there. Rudy Rochman, like very, very cool,
hmm
kind of young, hot, fresh.
Influencers.
Influencers. Very. So yeah, we have
or
everything.
YouTubers or whatever you want to call them.
Everything from the most of serious to the other side of
Well,
that.
they could be serious too.
Definitely. I'm excited to hear that.
Right. So there'll be also Benny Gantz, head of the National Union Party, speaking about his vision for the day after, whatever the day after is, in that respect. There will be
Jason Greenblatt.
Jason Greenblatt, who is former special envoy to the Middle East for Trump, and Trump 1.0, which is maybe different, may not be different. It's very unclear.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yes,
That's
people
a
are
whole
talking
topic for
about
another
the Trump
podcast.
2.0.
Trump 2.0, Trump 1.0.
Yeah,
Goodness.
on steroids.
Wow.
Steroids, yeah.
I mean, a lot's been happening. That I do feel like it's on steroids.
It's on steroids.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like, if you like go to sleep one day and like go to sleep for 24 hours and wake up, you'll probably just be surprised.
Yeah.
About a lot of things.
I mean, it was so nice. Like, I just said this already, but it was so nice that this week we went to sleep and woke up with Edan Alexander
Yeah.
coming home. That was incredible.
Right.
Like, unbelievable.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, you know, politicians will be politicians and they need to use it for their own benefit. That said, you know, it's one more person back, and we, you know, the life itself is something important.
So a whole world.
Yeah. So back to the conference. Julia Hart will be there.
Oh my goodness. That's
Yes,
exciting.
Yes. And
want-
surprisingly,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to interview her and
Oh
her
my
daughter
goodness.
Miriam. Yes. It's
Oh,
not.
Miriam.
It's not. Yeah.
That's so interesting.
It
I
is,
love
right?
The show Unorthodox.
Yeah.
Unorthodox, right?
We're
I'm not gonna shows
yeah.
mixed up. Unorthodox.
Maybe it's my unorthodox life, but yeah. But there's so many.
There's so many
people
plays
that
on
stole
it.
that
Yeah.
term for their
Mm-hmm.
movies, shows, and podcasts also. So that's gonna be interesting because there's, I mean, lots of elements. Obviously, there's business. You know, Julia Hart did a lot of interesting things in fashion, but also her daughter Miriam, who is really smart, like computer engineer, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh wow.
Who develops apps, but she's been very pro Israel since October 7th, coming here all the time.
And just so outspoken about herself and her identity.
Right, and her sexuality, etc.
Yeah,
So
love that.
She's like a very diverse. You know, she's very progressive when it comes to many things, but then on the other hand, she's very supportive of Israel. So it's like an interesting mix there.
I think it's so important to see an example where that lives together, right?
Yeah.
Like we know that exists together, so
Well,
it's
here-
awesome to see it on the stage.
Well, in Israel, it exists very, everywhere you go.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting and surprising. And as you said, social media influencers, Montana Tucker.
Dr. Phil.
Dr. Phil.
Dr.
Okay,
Phil.
yes.
Oh my goodness.
Dr. Phil. I'm excited for Dr. Phil.
Incredible.
And I'm going to hopefully not say that my mother is very excited that he's there, because then he'll feel old. But she will be very excited.
Or he'll be flattered. He'll be like, oh, it's because mom, cool.
Yeah. So it's actually interesting. He's going to be interviewing 3 volunteers of Zvika. We're collaborating with Zvika. They're fundraising for a resilience center. For those who don't know, Zvika is an organization that, I'm trying to put it in a light way.
Yeah, they handle like the dignity of victims of different accidents, attacks.
Right, but that's very, I mean, but basically in a very fatal situations, and collecting even ashes or even parts of blood according to Jewish law, etc.
On October 7th, they were incredibly pivotal.
Right,
in
like
the
going through the
country's
burnt
response.
cars, even, and like just
Absolutely, just like
trying to bury anything they can. Many of them suffer from post-trauma, so he's going to be speaking to 3 of them.
oh wow.
Yeah, 2 men, 1 woman, a volunteer. And it's gonna be interesting because that's his focus really is on post-trauma.
Amazing.
And so many other people.
Keith and Aviva Siegel, who
Yeah.
are both came back from captivity in hostage deals, will
Right.
be speaking.
So Aviva came back on November
She
2023.
came back in the November 23 deal.
And he came back a
Um,
few months ago.
Yeah,
Keith.
really recently in the most
Right.
recent
So,
deal.
and you were in the conference last year, and she was there together with a group of families from the Hostage Forum. And she spoke, and she was their representative. Obviously, she's an English speaker. And it was a very emotional moment. There was a lot of behind the scenes tensions because Amichai Shikli, the Diaspora Affairs Minister, spoke there. He said the war is going to continue for at least 2 more years and that their loved ones may be there for another few years. Very insensitive, I would say, towards those families. And she spoke, and they all stood behind her, and like they sang
Wow.
Hatikva, our national anthem, at the end of the conference. And it was a very, sad but emotional moment. And to have her come back with her husband, Keith, who we've all
incredible.
been waiting for. And, it's funny, we keep on trying to remember the hostage deals and what happened in each release of them. And I think he was one of those that were very skinny and
He
he
lost
looked
a
very,
huge amount of weight. Yeah.
So, so he's one of those people where they came out and we're like, okay, this is what's going. And he's an elderly man. He's not he's not a soldier. I don't even know if he was a soldier. It doesn't really matter because if so, it would be like 40 years ago or something like that. And so he's definitely one of those people that are in our hearts. And Aviva is also one of the, I think, more the vocal. No,
She's just
maybe more
she's had a
internationally.
Well, she's also had a year. She had a year before he came out to just be fighting. Like, we actually wrote an article about her.
She was
talking
like
about the year anniversary of her being out, and it was before he was even out yet.
Oh,
so she had all that time where she was just fighting so hard to bring him home.
So she was also nonstop back and forth on airplanes.
Yeah.
All
Oh my
over the
goodness.
world,
Yeah. She really
trying to-
was everywhere fighting for him. And I think it's incredibly interesting that she was with us at the last conference without him.
Yeah.
She'll be with us with him, which is so wonderful and like joyful.
Right.
And at the same time, they're advocating for 58 more Israelis still held, or 58 more hostages still held. Not all are Israeli. So it's just an incredible. It's crazy how bittersweet. It's not just a little bittersweet. It's incredibly bitter and sweet all at the same time.
It's not complete, and it's not
Absolutely.
like again. It's something that's emotional, but it's still sad, and it's still it's not. I mean, even when these hostages, all of them are released, hopefully, please God, very soon. This is a life. I mean, this is an experience that they'll take on. Their families, all many
Israelis
circles.
in the national conscience
Yeah, exactly.
will know that this is
It's
something
not-
that
right,
happened.
right,
Absolutely.
Right.
I want to ask you if you are excited the conference is occurring right now in the middle of an absolute storm of news, or if it's better to have a conference when things are chill and you can kind of put a pin on the news. Like, is this good? You're like, opportunity. We can talk about
I think
everything.
it's an opportunity. It's a good question because anything that certain people will say is a headline, right? So anything that Steve Witkoff says or Adam Bowler is a headline because, again, hopefully on Monday, everything will be known.
Yeah.
And we'll be like, oh, let's talk about the release of all the hostages or, about to be released, right?
Yeah.
But it could also just be leading up to something. And everyone's just very thirsty and they just want to hear something. They want and I think Israelis are just sitting on their like at the edge of their chairs and they just want to hear something positive happening. So I think it's a good thing that it's, I mean,
In the middle of this
hopefully,
storm.
hopefully the news will be positive.
I hope so.
Ish. So then it won't just be, but there's so many things happening as we speak. And, hostage families are in Doha as we speak, as well as representatives of the Prime Minister's office. So who knows? I mean, it could really be the week or the day or the year.
What about for those of us who do not have a ticket, cannot make it to New York, very sadly? How can we keep apprised?
So you can watch online at jpost.com.
Oh, nice.
Our gala evening with Dr. Phil will not be live, but we will be picking certain parts and putting them online immediately after, I think. But the rest on Monday, May 19th, is the conference. It will be live as early as 9 a.m. Eastern time. So in Israel, that will be 3 o'clock. Is that 3? 4 o'clock. 4 p.m. Israeli time. And it's a very long day and lots of stuff, lots of surprises, interesting things. And as I said, hopefully good news.
Tell us, what are you most excited for?
I can't tell you.
It's like picking your favorite kid, not allowed to do it publicly.
It's also a secret.
Oh, so you're telling people to tune in.
Can't tell you.
Gotta watch it.
You have to watch.
And with that plug, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Jerusalem Post podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to give it a like, comment, subscribe. You can find us at jpost.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, or wherever you get your podcasts. Be well.